So what we'll do is let both of you introduce yourselves. Usually the guests on here just would really like to know, where you started, even if it wasn't from this country, and then, what you've done in the meantime, from an education standpoint, and then what you've been doing from a job standpoint. So it would be great just for us to get to know you, and then we will start to dive into your strengths. Does that sound good?
Sure.
Okay.
All my secrets.
All right. That's exciting. So, Busola, do you want to, would you like to start for us and just give everybody a little background on yourself?
Sure. I am Busola Adeniran. Hi, Brandy. I haven't seen
Hi.
you in
So nice to
forever.
see you too.
Yeah. Where I started, well, that's going to be long. So I have an engineering degree in metallurgical and materials engineering. Don't ask me what that means. Got that over 20 years ago in Nigeria, worked for a little bit and decided that I wanted to get my MBA. So applied all over, and I ended up at Howard University in Washington, D.C., where I got my MBA in finance, because engineering and finance, it totally made sense. And then when I finished my MBA, decided to work in oil and gas, because why not? Engineering, oil and gas, Nigerian. So from DC, lived in Houston for about 10 years. And we all know what happened with oil and gas back in 2015, 2016. The market went down, oil prices tanked. So again, had to pivot, which I'm sure we'll be talking about a lot more later, and moved to the Dallas area in 2018. I think I met you in 2019, Brandy, or end of 2018.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so after oil and gas, did some consulting here and there. What was a brand new mom when I got laid off from oil and gas as well. And then I worked in aerospace, aerotech, something like that in the Dallas area. Then guess what? COVID happened in 2020. And then I pivoted into tech, which is kind of where I've been now since 2020. And education-wise, like got my undergrad in engineering, have an MBA, have my PMP certifications, have a whole list of acronyms behind my name. Right now, I work for Microsoft as a program manager in, I'll just say sales. That's kind of like the simplest way to describe it, kind of like a sales enablement program manager, how to help people sell better with whatever tools and technology they need. And I'm still in the Dallas area, even though I work remotely.
So since you have such a varied background and so many different experiences, the $1 million question is, what was your favorite thing to do?
All of it. I wouldn't trade it for the world, because I feel like every little bit adds to part of who Busola is today. And I, believe it or not, I still draw from my oil and gas experience in my current job today. And even from what I did back in consulting when I was in Nigeria, I still draw on that today. And you can see it in the way I do slides, like my PowerPoint decks, or how I write emails, very short, brief, concise messaging. And that probably also ties into my engineering background, where you don't need a lot of fluff to get information across, but it doesn't always land well, with certain people, because they want more. But I'm like, too long, don't read. Here's what you need to know, and then we can delve more into it then. But to me, it's all part of what makes me me, and I wouldn't change anything.
Any future aspirations in the horizon?
We'll see when we get there. No. No, like every day is like a treat. Like, what's going to happen today, and how am I going to deal with whatever comes my way?
Yes.
is how I look at it.
Yep. Okay, thank you so much. Does anybody else have questions? Not yet? Okay. Michael, would you like to introduce yourself to us as well, please?
Sure, I'm Mike Battaglia. I own a company called Insure You Too. We help companies with employee benefits. When I was 3, I always dreamt of being an insurance agent. And no, that's not how it worked. I will tell you, I pretty much have stumbled through life in my careers. I grew up in the outskirts of Cleveland, Ohio. When I graduated high school, my father moved down to Dallas, and I thought, well, maybe I should do something like go to college. So I entered Ohio State University late because I never do anything on time. And I started going for an EE degree because my entire life I know electrical engineering was what I wanted to do. In about my first semester at Ohio State, I realized I had no idea what I wanted to do in life. So I failed out of Ohio State, and I came down to see my dad on Christmas. He was golfing. I went back to Ohio State and was in 2 degrees below zero and decided to jump on a plane and come to Dallas. He at the time owned a couple companies, so I worked in a printed circuit board shop and learned that everything from one side to the other. And he also owned a machine shop. And I would spend 14-hour days working that and learning everything about the businesses. When he got rid of that, I stumbled around trying to find a job. And somebody thought they recognized my name from Ohio State. They didn't, but they hired me anyhow. And that's so I kind of got into a company doing electrical circuit board repair, hardware repair. I thought that was fine, and trying to figure out why my tests would pass and the boards would still fail, I started learning software because I figured it was in the software. So I stumbled into software and made a 20-year career out of that. Realized at that point that, geez, that's what I probably was meant to do my whole life. It came naturally and I enjoyed the heck out of it. I ended up working for a company called DSC, if anybody knows them. And I got up to become a major architect on a major product. And one day a senior VP, won't go into what he said, but it's upset me enough that I walked out and started my consulting career. I never did very good inside companies. I'm kind of I'm not a good player. So I started doing consulting, which was a lot funner to me. And I was on the road all but about, I don't know, 27 hours a day. And I got married at that time, and only spending 27 hours a week with my wife probably wasn't the best idea. So I came off the road and took a job in New Jersey to run a software department in '99. And that company closed 2 months after I got up there. So I tried consulting again. I thought I'd get hired. And of course, Y2K and 9/11 really wiped out the software market. Mm-hmm. So I thought I'd be smart and started my own company again, doing business continuity planning. And I learned a lot about writing brochures and pretty text and nothing about sales. And so I did not do well at that. So I decided to come back to Dallas, where my wife asked me to get a real job. And on a practice interview, they were telling me all about the benefits of being an insurance salesman. And that's how I ended up here. I worked for a company that I didn't think was the most ethical. So I just started my own agency, and that's where I am.
So
all planned out.
What'd you say?
Said all planned out.
Yeah. So I don't know if the rest of you can hear these guys, but I hear it in both of them. The go with the flow, just see what happens, live in the present moment, go from job to job. Don't really, have like like a pointed plan. It's not that they don't have an overall arching, goal or plan, but it's how they get there is not necessarily important. It's more fun to just explore and see what happens. And I also heard, like, when Michael, when you were saying that you loved traveling and being out of the office, that's an adaptability trait too, of just the joy of just getting on the road and going somewhere and seeing what happens for the day. Are you guys hearing that when they speak? Is anybody picking up on any of that? Do you guys have anything to add to that?
I'm just really wondering if you have futuristic and strategic in your world, if your life is just going to be really interesting. Because everybody who has that, of course, as you know, Brandy, they're just like, well, I'm kind of interested in this, so I just threw this, and then I wound up here, and then I wound up here, and I wound up here, and I wound up here. And I don't know. And some people get us and some people don't. I also heard that too. Like, and if people don't get us, they really don't get us.
Yeah. So the strategic and futuristic part are the overall big picture. They've got navigation in them, and the strategic does, and futuristic is the painting of the picture of what the future could look like. Jay, do you also have ideation?
Oh gosh, I would have to grab my thing on there. I'd have to look.
Because there's other strengths that are causing the go with the flow, or
Mm,
the abstract, or the eccentricness to that. Futuristic has some creativity, but it's the ideation makes it even more creative. Now,
Yeah.
these two have strategic, futuristic, and adaptability in their top 5. When we select top 10, they actually also share that ideation, okay, and the connectedness. So when you have an ideation and adaptability both in your top 10, those are accentuated because they are both very present moment, non-traditional or unconventional. And so you just don't have to go or do the traditional, thing. It's not, there's not a lot of structure around that. Where the strategic allows them to prioritize and say, this is the most important thing and this is the least important thing. So the strategic gives them the ability to prioritize, but otherwise we have two very creative, open people on this call that are much more flexible than the guests that we've had in the past.
Yeah, it's interesting that Michael was sharing that he liked to travel. If you remember, Brandy, I shared this with you. I love to travel. And what I did with my travel is I used to love running, and I don't run 5Ks. I love the marathon and half marathon races. So what I did was I want to see the States. And so I started a challenge about 10 years ago where I wanted to participate in a half or full marathon in all 50 states. And that's just how I've been able to see a whole variety of different places. And the only state I have left to visit is Alaska. And I finally, last week I wrapped up plans, and I'm like, this year I finally have to do it because I was supposed to do it before the year COVID started and nobody was traveling in 2020.
Well,
Definitely not a race.
I have family there. So if you need a place to stay, I'm sure they would love to have you.
Yeah. And so I decided, I signed up for the race in January, and last week I finally have my itinerary together. So I'm gonna go to Anchorage in June.
So can you help me understand? So adaptability is like live in the present moment, but futuristic is thinking about the future. So you have both sets of thinking, and your number 1 and number 2 strengths. So how does that tend to work for you?
So for me, in my job, like I said, I'm a program manager for Microsoft, and I work in the commercial sales, enterprise, and futuristic for me shows up a lot in how I choose to do my work. there's a lot of conversations around AI and Chat GPT, but I was way ahead of them because, like as a program manager, they want you to summarize notes or whatever. And I'm like, now we have a tool for that. I'm just going to drop it into, like, imagine a day where I didn't even have to have a meeting. Like I was on a call before this and I used an avatar to represent me in a meeting. And I've always wanted to do that years ago. So any way that I can enable tech, even if it's not developed yet, to improve my day-to-day living, I would do that. So I use that, and I guess the blind spot I would say between strategic and futuristic for me is not, and Jay just mentioned it was spot on when he said people can't, like if they don't get you, they don't get you. And a lot of times they don't get me on my team because I'm like, I'm already at P. They're still on B, C, trying to struggle with what it is that I'm saying. And I'm like, I'm already here, but they want me to walk things backwards and tell them how I got there. But I'm like, we're here. Okay, I'll go back, but we're still going to end up here. And it doesn't always, go over well, but.
So I'm going to, isn't that the most frustrating?
It is.
Because you connect the dots so fast, you're like, oh man, we got to change this because if we don't do this, has a high probability of actually happening. And it's like people are going, well, you're just being chicken little. The sky isn't falling. And you go, no, I've done the probabilities in my head. I've done the analysis. There's a very high likelihood it could happen. And then going back, it's like every time you go back, they go, well, that's probably not going to happen. That's too far in the future. Let's step it back and just deal where we are right now. I don't know if you've ever thought that and walked away from a meeting going, I know I'm right.
Oh, 100%. I know I'm always right, but also having that adaptability strand in there has given me the flexibility to be like, okay, you know what? Amazon has one leadership principle that I love, and it is, what is it again? Something about committing. You disagree, but you commit to whatever the team wants to do. That's the way I would rephrase it. I'm like, okay, y'all don't want to do this particular thing. I will let you try your own way, but at some point, you're going to come back to my own way around of thinking. And there are very few times where I've been wrong. I have to say that, but sometimes you have to go with the majority too.
And you're not trying to be cocky. It's you've done the math in your head, right? And
yes.
Right.
But
anyway.
It's hard to bring people to that point where they understand that you've done the math and it's real math, not futuristic math, from some sci-fi movie or whatever. That's been my experience.
Michael, what about you? Do you have any thoughts?
Thoughts. I'm lost.
He's already done the math.
Yeah,
he's
way out there.
Yeah, I know I tend to see things well before other people see things. There was always that with software development. Anytime anybody couldn't figure something out, say a bug or a problem, they'd be looking and trying to find a solution. And I go, oh, look over here. Surprise, if you do this over here, that solves all those other problems. And they're always like, how'd you get, doesn't matter, go there, you'll be all right. So I've always had that superpower. I don't know how that fits into futuristic, but just my mind can tend to see things like that.
I think futuristic is really one of your abilities to see what matters in the future. If you're thinking about the things that are coming in the future, then why would we do these other things that don't matter anymore? Where the strategic is the navigational plan to get to that future. The futuristic is the imagination of it. And the strategic plan is, okay, how do we actually get there? How do we get from point A to point B most efficiently? Now that
To me, a lot of people write that down and do things like project management planning. And I even got my PMP at one point, and I hated doing all that because I could see where it was, and writing it down would just slow me down. It was a pain in the butt, and why do I want to even write it down? It was like, they're just this, forget all that other paperwork crap. I've always been that way. The paperwork side, the write it down, which is terrible because then it's hard to bring other people with you, but which is probably why I don't work in corporate America well. You know, I'm just lazy, and I'd rather not do the work and just do the results.
So tell us how the ideation kind of floods in there. Like, do you come up with really eccentric, unconventional ways of doing things that are interesting, that, you know, are just more creative than what people around you are doing? Do you have ideas flowing?
Yes, but to me, I don't see that. How's that for an answer? To me, it's just as normal when people go, you know, when I was working at DSC, I came up with a whole brand new architecture for all their systems in this very different way of doing things. And of course, politically, that wasn't the thing that they wanted, which was one of the things that drove me out of the company. Recently, you know, there's been this issue with, I'm part of 10K, Goldman Sachs 10K program, and their alumni program had some issues, and a couple of people tried to solve it. And I was like, okay, let's just do it this way. And we were the first ones to get approval from Goldman Sachs to continue on because I had saw it differently. And I was able to articulate that to them while I didn't write it down. So I tend to have those things, which gets me bored quickly, and I just move on, and I have a hard time going forward with all that.
Have both of you been told people don't understand why you're approaching problems the way you're approaching them?
Oh, yeah.
A lot, yeah.
And the smart ones realize that they need to figure that out and follow that approach. But yeah.
Just let me do my thing, man. I'll get there. You just got to trust me. But people are very scared because it's not your typical process or approach. And I think that freaks people out.
I don't even know that it's that we don't understand. So, you know, why would I do something I don't understand? That doesn't make any sense to me.
And I think if it's a supervisor, they lack control.
Say, what do you mean by that? Can you give us an example?
Well, you're so far ahead of them and processing past them, and they're feeling like they're not in control. They're subordinate at that point. When they can't handle empowering you enough to give you enough space, time, and buy-in to allow you to be brilliant and make them look good.
Yeah, you're coming at it from the other angle now, right? Which is when you report to somebody who doesn't understand you.
Yeah, they don't get it, so they don't get it.
Yeah,
they like, don't get it. Like, you can't explain it to them. It's like trying to bring squirrels along in geometric shapes and explanations almost. I mean, I'm kind of going with I'm being extreme here.
Well, yeah, and I think that there is like let's say you take really highly creative people and you stick them in a room with CFOs, right? A bunch of finance people. The ability for those two groups of people to communicate is very difficult. You know, you've just got someone over here that's thinking about very, very structured, practical, you know, numbers to the nth degree, and what that means and how that makes sense to them. And then you've got, you know, the creative people on the other side where that doesn't make sense at all, but there's this other world that makes so much more sense, this visual and the smell and these feelings and this color. And you know, it's just two different types of people that come at the world. They perceive the world differently, they process the world differently, and they output differently. So how the hell are they supposed to communicate effectively? It's extremely difficult.
Say, Brandy, quick question.
Yeah.
Do either of them have any execution? Because I don't see any
Yes.
execution on mine.
Yeah,
Okay.
so Mike has execution right at number 6. Okay, but you could hear him. He really likes to be the ideator, the strategic thinker, the relationship builder, but not necessarily the executor, especially if it's highly administrative. Did I get that right, Mike?
That's absolutely true.
Well, we always
Yeah.
wonder, what do you do?
Nothing.
I do. I always tell you, I take naps. You know, you were talking a little bit about bosses and stuff. To me, there's this really weird dynamic, which is a lot of bosses were pretty sure that I'd be after their job, which I had no interest in whatsoever, because it was elective execution. At the same time, I suffer from imposter syndrome so bad that I never thought I could do that anyhow. No, that's not true. I always thought if I ever had the right education and experience somebody had, I could do any job there is. But I never put myself through that, right? So I know I have the capability, and then most of the jobs I did is I've always felt like, well, if they ever figured out what I really know, which is nothing, I probably wouldn't be here. So it was, because it was too natural. It was just, you did it. I never went to college, golly, and it wasn't until recently I realized that that was just a bunch of malarkey in my head, and that I'm actually not too bad. It took me 60 years, but I got there.
Yeah, and we think we need to work hard to make money. So when we do something that just seems really easy, we can't imagine getting paid for that thing, because who would pay for that? That's really easy. When in actuality, that's your brilliance, and people will pay you a lot to do that because you are so good at that, especially if you put time and energy into that area that seems easy to you, because you become the expert in that realm. I see that over and over and over and over again when I work with people. Okay, Busola, let's go to you. Let's go look at yours. Brad asked if you had any execution.
Well, I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suffer from trying to be an overachiever, which is probably like number 5. And just because I'm very stubborn, and which is probably why I run marathons, even though I'm not built for it. I like to finish what I started. I don't enjoy the administrative part of program management. I still don't know why that is a profession for me, but that's where I end up. But I don't treat it as such. Engineers like Michael love me because I speak engineering, like I understand what it is. They give me what they need. They give me what I need, and I give them what they need, which is to be left alone to do like the creative stuff. And then I just go with the flow. But if you've ever worked with me as a program or project manager, you would realize that I don't run projects the same way everybody does it. My plans, I fly by the seat of my pants a lot. So my plan is whatever I say it is going to be. I am forever tweaking it. And if we get it done in 2 days, cool, versus 2 months. And that helps a lot with that achiever, piece of it. And Brenda, I remember when we're going through my profile, back then, you're like, yeah, I don't see executing, but you do have this achiever and arranger at the end of it. So yeah, you do start what you finish. Yeah, I always do. But
Yeah,
I can't remember. I think
you have activator, which is start, right? Start,
Yeah.
fire, start.
Yes.
And then you have achiever, which is actually start, finish. So that's pretty strong. That means you're cranking through some things pretty fast.
Well, because I know, I am Nigerian, and we're overachievers and we like to accomplish things. So there's no way my name is going to be next to start and never finishes anything. So that's where that stubbornness helps. One thing I've been doing right now of recent is with my managers, I've been sharing my profile with them. So when I'm talking in meetings, they understand that I'm not being rude, I'm not being difficult, I'm not trying to poke holes in everybody's ideas, but can we just get moving and move on to the next thing versus, like, oh, we have to be collaborative and we have to compromise and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, that's not what's going to get us to the next step or get us to that target we have. So I've been sharing, like, whatever personality test we take, I'm not shy. I just share with them and be like, this is what this says that I am. And if you want to get the best out of me, this is the best way to manage me. And
how has that been received?
very well, because I have a manager who is about structure and rules and whatever. I'm like, you're going to get some structure. It's structure in my own world. It might not be structure to you, but let's just call it structure. Okay. and be done with it and just move on. So
funny.
We're learning how to work with each other, and it doesn't look like how everybody else does it, but I'm like, I'm owning it. I'm learning to tell my own story
So
the way it is.
do you have a moment in your life or in time where you're just really, really proud of how adaptable you were in that moment?
As a program manager, always.
No, because program management even has a lot of structure just innately, right? I just mean anytime in school, as a kid, in your friendships, in your early career, anything as a mom, is there any place where you're just really proud of how you were able to adjust, adapt, be a chameleon, make it work, like where it was just you kind of shined in that moment?
I don't know if I would say shining. My son is almost 7. Amara's almost 7 now. He'll be 7 in 2 weeks. And you have expectations for those that have kids. You have a child, and then you have all these expectations. They're going to be great. They're going to be an astronaut or whatever, or come up with some new invention. And I remember it was right around 19 months where he got a diagnosis that he was autistic, because he wasn't, like, he was in preschool and he wasn't just like everybody else. I knew, like, I could tell that there was something off, but the adaptable me was just like, oh, he's just doing his own thing. You got to let him be who he is. But it got difficult as time went on. And that probably explains how I've been able to pivot my career. And now I live day to day. Like, so if he comes home and he says, bye, mom, which is something sometimes he doesn't even acknowledge me. He's just in his own world. I'm like, I'll take that. That's a win. And like, I bring out the pom-poms and celebrate like he won a Nobel Peace Prize for something. So that is what, like, the adaptability, that's where it shines in my life right now, every day. And I remember I used to talk to you a lot about this, that I don't want any job that would interfere with me being his mom, because that is what matters most. So if I have to show up to therapy with my laptop, I will do that. I'm sitting in the library right now near his therapy, because that's just what I have to do. And I'm also always very transparent with my employers or leadership, because sometimes he's home with me and he will show up in meetings and be like, hi, like, say hi to everybody. So I've just learned to breathe and go with the flow. And that's what I'm not really good at, making plans, because I don't know what the next hour is going to throw at me. I could get a phone call and they will be like, oh, you got to come get him. He's not having a good day. And I'm like, okay, sure.
Yeah, that's what I find the most amazing about adaptability, is the ability to just not only just change and go and take whatever spontaneity is thrown at you, but to be happy about it, to just happily say, oh, well, now it's time to do this. Oh, well, now it's time to do this. Oh, I guess we're going to do this now. And it's like this perpetual happiness about just because you take pride in adapting and changing with it right lickety split in that moment. So what's interesting about your answers, it just sounds like that is the thing in your life that requires the most adaptability.
It is.
Therefore you're at your best when you are being, adaptable, and that's your shining moment.
And life will be boring if you're not adaptable to change because change is constant.
Oh, I'm not bored at all. I love it.
Yeah.
I love my structure. I love my peaceful. Adaptability is like number 33 for me. So, Michael, do you have any shining moments that come to your mind around your strengths?
What was my strength? Talked about this so long ago, I don't remember. Adaptability, I don't know. You said, what's your top? It's like, I don't know. That's like saying, what's the best breath you ever took in your life? It's just you breathe it. You don't even recognize it to say that was, you know, I mean, even this, you want to come? Sure, I'll show up, whatever. It doesn't matter.
You know, it sounded like that travel job was pretty fun for you.
It was interesting. I mean, really, we just went. I mostly went to Delta Airlines in Atlanta, so I was just jumping out on one plane going to Atlanta back and forth. You know, but the project itself, jumping in different projects, you know, was always an adaptation. You know, when I went out to Jersey, when I came back here, you know, find a new job. It's when I decided to become a insurance agent, that was a huge adaptation, right? It's like, oh, hey. And I pretend like I know how to sell, which I don't, but luckily I know how to build relationships. And so I get business regardless of how bad of a salesman I am. You know, but I'll tell you what, the biggest adaptability to me was I am a introvert by nature. And I've spent many years learning how to get out and network and be in a group. And you can watch, it sucks every bit of energy out of me at a networking event, but I go to them constantly because I enjoy the hell out of them, even though they like wipe me out. And that's where some of the best people are, and I can hear some of the best things I know, and forget the sales part of it. But if you ever watch me at a networking event, there will always be a moment when I'm off by myself, standing there staring into nothing with nobody around because I've got to retreat and going to see the next person and try to get a conversation is like I've got no energy left, and I will always retreat at these events. And it's just I come home and my wife, are you okay? I'm wiped out. But yet I enjoy the heck out of them.
Yeah, and it seems like you would like talking to people a little bit more one-on-one in a you know, a coffee or just a one-on-one phone call. With Relator being so high, it seems like that would be more appealing. Let's see, where's your woo? Yeah, your woo is clear down at 29, which is usually the really highly social function.
I one-on-one's always better, especially if I have some knowledge. I mean, if it's like just you know, I'll call it a blind date, somebody, you know, here, go meet this person, then it's like, and on the phone, forget it.
Yeah.
There is no phone conversation with me.
Yeah.
That is killer for me.
So can you guys hear the difference too between the intensity of function that Busola has, right? Just the drive and, you know, getting things going, and the impatience and the, you know, let's just get things done. You can hear that added with her adaptability, futuristic, strategic ideation, connectedness, where, you know, you can hear the intensity with Mike around his ideas, the go with the flow, the thinking outside the box, your creativity. I was hearing it in the architect sense as well, and being able to just, you know, start a business and then try something else and start a business and try something else. And just, to me, there's an intensity there that exists that, you know, it doesn't look that way maybe from, you know, you might look at him and go, oh, he's just trying different things. But I think there is an intensity in that, right? The ability to try different things and experiment and adapt into those things and make these different things work from a business standpoint.
So Brandy, as I'm looking at them, it's interesting. Busola is when you're looking, comparing and contrasting Michael and Busola, I see she's like a little bit more, right? Than
more execution.
Well, no, like Maximizer is at 10 for Busola and then like 14 at Michael, right? And that activator is like 4 versus 11, right? So the hierarchy is a little bit pushed forward on some of those, like they both have connectedness at 7 and 8, so that's pretty close. So, and connectedness is all about relationships, right?
Yeah. It's about well, it's both architectural and economic and relational. It's got 3 components to it.
So Busola, how do you manage your relationships? Because it seems like if somebody has your same ideology about getting stuff done, that's an easy relationship for you. You're like, yes, this person likes to get stuff done. We're going to get along great. How do you manage when you run into people that like, hey, wait a minute, slow down. What do we got to do here?
Yeah. But it's interesting. I don't spend a lot of energy on what already works because like it's boring. And so I focus more on, as I get further along in my career, I focus more on, okay, like not everybody's the same way or gonna want to do things the same way you do. So I put a lot more energy into just making sure the person is seen and heard, because at the end of the day, it's what I'm trying to get out of it that is important, not what I already know. So like I said, Michael sounds like a lot of the engineers that I've worked with, especially when I was in oil and gas. So if I spend a little bit more time invested in that relationship, it's going to take me further versus doing what I don't like to worry about things that are already done or I'm in control of. So if I know you get me, you understand my style, then yeah, sure, we'll catch up whenever we can. Then I can go ahead and do something else. That's more of a challenge for me when we don't have that immediate rapport and I have to work with you versus sticking with the norm. And I tell people a lot too that I can seem extroverted, but a lot of times if I'm at a networking event, you find me just roaming around in the hallways trying to like recharge, then go back, talk to people, then come back and then talk to people, and then and at the end of the day I'm exhausted.
So Brandy, is that their connectedness that's coming out with that?
Which parts?
Well, how they both can relate to people, but then they kind of just
because you
take
can
a step back.
You can see they both had about 60% introversion. So Busola is almost 60%. And then, oops, sorry. Ugh. And then if we go over here, this is 63%. So they're very similar in their energies, where they can spend some time with people, but they need some time to think as well. And so it's not just one thing that you're seeing, it's this combination. And so like if they hear a good speaker, they're going to be dreaming and thinking, and ideas are going to be flooding in, and they've got all kinds of things going on. They may want to interact to some degree, but they may also want to think about what they just heard, or, maybe some other ideas are coming. And then maybe they want to go interact again to get some more ideas from people. And then they need some time to let the ideas flow.
Is it the relator that, because the relator wants to go deep, but with a few people, whereas connectedness, you want to meet everybody.
No. You're mistaking your connectedness for your woo. Mm-hmm.
No. I'm still learning for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So woo wants to go meet everybody, right? They want to win you over, go to the next, win you over, go to the next, win you over, go to the next. Adaptability wants to move among the people. Think of adaptability as water flowing, okay? It wants to move around because it gets bored and it just needs to experience something different and then change again. Think about the word different or change. This, different, change. That allows them to adapt dynamically in the moment. If they're not changing, if they don't have changes, it's so boring. They have to have change. They have to have stuff that they can adapt to every single day. So they might want to talk to someone for a minute, but then they might want to go talk to someone else. Now, Mike has relator, which means if he relates with you, if you are an adaptable, ideative, futuristic strategist, he may actually want to have a coffee with you one-on-one and sit down and really talk with you about some things because he relates with you. He wants to build that relationship long-term. But it is going to be that he more likely wants to do that with people that are more like him rather than people that are really, really different. Now, again, the adaptability piece means, oh no, I like different, Brandy. I like different. I like change. I like, seeing different things. So he's got both sets. Sometimes he wants to be one-on-one with the people that he can relate with the most. And sometimes he wants to be adapting and changing and, having different experiences, because ideation also likes different experiences. Sort of like those immersive experiences are really cool for ideators. So yeah, you guys are hearing like a variety of different things enacting at different times. The connectedness piece for them is their ability to connect all the dots, right? All the individual things that are happening to the bigger picture. It's got that architecture brain where it's piecing everything together. But it's also the ability to connect with all walks of life because it finds all of them necessary to the bigger picture. Both of these people truly believe we are one, we are all connected, and what everyone does matters and plays into the big picture. So if one lever moves, that impacts another lever on the other side.
Positivity is also in there. Can you talk to that? I'm curious as to how that affects.
Both people are just going to have a genuinely positive outlook, and they're going to want positivity in their life, and they're going to have a positive outlook. It's not going to be pessimistic or cynical like you would if you had maybe analytical clear at the top. Instead, it's going to be optimistic, positive, and wanting to bring that positivity and impact others with positivity as well. And it's just this, those people that walk down the hall and they're just smiling and they're bubbly, and these guys don't have it that high. They don't have it clear in the top 5, but they still have a positive undertone underneath everything. Is that right, Busola?
For sure. Yeah.
I can also see Busola saying, "I'm positive I'm correct."
Oh yeah, for sure. No, because it's interesting. Like when I was walking into the library an hour ago, I was like, oh, what's that camera crew doing out there? And then they approached me and wanted me to give an interview. I was like, I was just smiling because it's a good day, not because of anything. So that's what that was what I was thinking about, Jay, when you were like, yeah, you're right about that. And it doesn't mean that you don't get down in the dumps when things go wrong. I get very frustrated, but I'm always very quick to pivot and be like, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're just going to try something different and just keep moving forward, taking steps.
So, Michael, how does your belief impact these particular strengths? You have belief right at 6, which tells me you really have to believe in what you're doing or you're not going to do it. Is that true?
That's probably a good. I might have a hard time doing things I don't believe. Yeah, that's it's a waste of time. Again, that's why I don't work in the corporate world, right? Because most of the time they're doing things I don't believe, or I don't have the full impact. I always say, well, then I must not understand something they do because this doesn't make a bit of sense. But it's still hard to push water uphill that way for me. I think one of the reasons why I enjoy insurance as much as I do, which I'm telling you is probably weird. It takes a unique person to do insurance. In the health especially is people ask me what my why is. Why do you do that? And I won't go into the whole story, but there's a little girl that I helped way in the beginning that I still have as a client now that needed open heart surgery the day she was born. And I've been keeping her with insurance, and in today's market is harder than you think, all these years, and keeping her with her doctors. And I truly believe what I do makes an impact in people's lives.
It
And I
does.
think that's the driving force between the insurance. It's not the insurance, it's what it does.
Mhm.
And so that belief, it keeps me excited about what I'm doing.
Yeah, and traditionally, one of the characteristics of belief is to help those that cannot help themselves. That's a
Ye-
very strong motivator for belief, and you just happen to do that for somebody early on in this career, which
And it's funny because everybody says I work with really small companies, and I used to think, oh, I want to go upstream and make bigger companies, and then I kept thinking, because money, there's more money. It's just as much work, but more money. And I've realized I don't want to do that. And the reason why is I know a lot of my employees, employers' employees. I know a lot of people one-on-one that I help.
Mhm.
And I don't like, if I'm working with a bigger company, just being, a name in a book or somebody might call. Sticking with those small, nobody's helping them. And that's, so you talk about belief. I enjoy the heck out of what I'm doing because I believe in that, and those people need help.
Yeah.
Thank you for what you do as a mom to a special needs child. I'm sure you understand the battle it is every day trying to get services, dealing with insurance, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, thank you.
So I wondered, do both of you have an event in your past growing up that makes you want to have impact, or that makes you want to help people that, were either not seen or not heard, right? You mentioned that, Busola. You want to make sure people are seen and heard, right? And Michael, you said sticking up for the people that aren't seen and heard, the little companies, right? Both of you have that in common a little bit. Do you have any event in the past that you can talk to that says, yes, this is part of who I am and why I do what I do?
I can address that. Yeah, I kicked off an event in my life, and I will warn everybody the power of prayer. Be careful with what you pray for. When I got to New Jersey for that company, I started realizing I thought I was a big hot shot. I had 30 people working underneath me, and I had a simple prayer, and I said, dear Lord, just help me learn humility because I don't like the person I may be becoming. That's when the company closed. That's when the day I closed on my house, they came and told me I didn't have a job. And that was the first piece of humility. I then drove myself straight to bankruptcy. I found myself at one point with $50 in my pocket trying to feed my wife and son for 2 weeks before I could get any more money. And walking through a Walmart and trying to figure out how you do that was very humbling. And I realized a lot of my life, I didn't help a lot of people, and I changed everything. Everything became more about helping people. And that's where I am today.
Busola, any event in your life that was kind of a pivotal, life-changing moment for you?
I mean, I've had a lot of events, but I think I would go back to when I got laid off from oil and gas. It's interesting that Michael touched on the word humility because I thought I was all that and a bag of chips. And, like I had this career and nothing was going to stop me. And even when I got laid off, I had interviews all lined up. So I thought I was going to land on my feet. And it took 3 years, 3 years. And I like talking to Brandy, I couldn't pay her. I think I paid her with a gift card or something. But, she still, we met for coffee and she still talked to me and stayed connected ever since. And I think that's probably why empathy is like a 9 for me, because every time somebody reaches out to me that they're looking for a job, I mean, there's nothing more humiliating like being in Salt Lake focus group and trying to network with people, like literally begging for a job so that you could have insurance to pay for your kids' therapies or support your spouse in paying the bills. So I just always think that, like I've been there, and yeah, today I'm at Microsoft, and to me, it's just, like any other company. I could be working for Walmart and I probably will still have the same attitude, like towards work. It's a means to an end. But there were people who were downright being, they were rude and, like said a lot of awful things to me while I was trying to get a job. You'll never get a job looking that way. You should change your name and all kinds of things, but I don't stay down for longer. But like just having empathy for people's situations, just because it's good for you today doesn't mean it's going to be good tomorrow. And just always being willing to help people. And that's part of why when Brandy told me today, like when she reached out to me a month ago that, hey, you want to come jump in here? And I'm like, are you kidding me? Sure, I will do it. Like I have meetings going on right now, but I feel like kind of like I need to be here because she made me see myself. And people just think, you do personality tests and it's just whatever. But she made me see me for me, like what I was, what I am, and what I could be in the future. And every day at work too, I try to like emulate that and support people where they need to be supported and help them. And always make excuses. Oh, maybe they're just having a bad day. That's why they spoke to me that way. And we'll pick it up again the next day. So there's always something there, Jay, that keeps me going, makes me think. But yeah, being kind, it would be my number one.
So thank you, both of you, for being here today. I know you both have other meetings to get to, so I won't keep you any longer, but I just can't express enough how much I appreciate you both giving the time today for this. It will be posted on YouTube, so if you want to share it with anybody, it will be out there. And everyone who joined today, thank you very, very much. Next week will be with 2 women who have done sales and had an executive level of presence and have natural influence. So if you can join, all of you are welcome to join next week at same time, 2:00 on Monday. I think it's May 8th. So thank you so much. I hope you all have a wonderful week.
All right. Thank you.
It was
Bye.
amazing. Both of you were great. And Brandy
Thank you.
too, of course.
Thank you.
Wonderful session as always. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Brandy.
Brandy.
Talk to you soon.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good one.
Bye.
Great